the coffee shop effect, which is the helpful background noise that allows us to actually focus, which sounds counterintuitive until you've experienced it. Nike makes shoes individually, but they organize running clubs. The Navy SEALs train individually. Any single Navy SEAL is a lethal weapon, but they go on missions to get Osama bin Laden together because they're stronger as a team. And that's how I met a lot of directors. Produced for Cameron, for Woody Allen, for Mel Gibson, for David Fincher, for Spielberg, for, I work with a lot of the top directors. Everything is negotiable except death. And if no one's dead, it's like, there's a way out. My relationship with Laura, I realized I crossed a line one day where I thought to myself,
Hi, and welcome to Indian Explorers. In this podcast, we talk about Indian success stories. I am Sabrina, and together with my co-host Amit, we will get to understand the journey of our guests and what drives them. The optimism, patience, idealism, and courage, these are their attributes which we hope to bring to life in our conversations with them. So if you enjoy the show, please hit the subscribe button and share it with others. Amitu, today's conversation was long, but so good, right?
I enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, Steven Puri, he is fascinating, from creating visual graphics and movies for top directors in the industry to his new company, the Sukha, a global co-working website. We start off talking about he's the Indian Leonardo DiCaprio, and we go to the Indian George Clooney. So I just love this episode. I thought it was so fun.
I agree. I think we should just bring him on, Sabrina. I think he's a breath of fresh air, and I look forward to meeting him in person soon.
Perfect. Let's do it. I'm thrilled to welcome Steven Puri, who is a fascinating and multifaceted professional with a rich background spanning software engineering, film production, and entrepreneurship. He began his career as a young newscaster and junior software engineer before holding key roles in the entertainment industry at 20th Century Fox and DreamWorks. He oversaw iconic franchises such as the series 24 and Die Hard 5. He is now the founder and CEO of the Sukha, a global co-working platform. With a passion for community building and mental wellness, Steven aims to create tools that foster focus and meaningful human interactions. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
thank you guys for having me today.
I did notice you have a great voice, and I read that you were the AOL movie voice. Is that true?
Press 3 for Transformers 2.
Oh my gosh.
No. That would be super funny.
No?
For anyone old enough to remember dialing movie phone, that would be really funny. No, but I do love the guy who has that voice. There are a couple of those voices that, depending on how old you are, if you're 6, 16, 60, you're like, oh my God, that was the voice of so-and-so. Or I worked with, when I was doing movie trailers, this gentleman who did hundreds of thousands of voiceovers named Don LaFontaine. And he was famous because he was the guy who did "In a World Where," blah, 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 whatever happens, because he had this voice. You could put him over explosions, over music, and you could still understand him. And he was, when he died, it was like this mini celebrity inside Hollywood. Like, no one outside Hollywood knew him, but inside Hollywood, everyone knew him because he was the voice of movies, of movie trailers.
That industry must be dead now, right? With AI?
I think, there's a lot about the media business that changed now that you can procedurally sort of create content.
Sure.
Yeah.
Steven, I want to start with the obvious question.
Oh boy.
Which is, I mean, your last name looks Indian, but you don't look Indian to me. So
what do I look to you?
You look Lebanese, Persian, American. You look like a mixture of various nationalities.
Okay, well, I love hummus. Let's be very clear about that. A good kebab any day for lunch. Done. To answer your question more seriously, though, my father was born in Multan. This was pre-partition. And then post-partition, his family moved into what we now have created as India, as defined as India. It's an interesting thing you bring that up, because my entire life I've been to India 10 times, from when I was 2, 4, 6, 8, little, to recently as an adult. And I have never been to the town where my dad grew up. It was very close to the border. Whenever we go to India, Dad was like, it's just not safe. There's too much, violence there. And this last Christmas, for the first time, my dad said, I would like to take you there. And I recognized he's 86. He's had 2 open heart surgeries. This is probably the last trip to the homeland. And happily, he and my wife love each other. And he invited both of us. He said, come with me. I want to show you something. So that's where we spent Christmas and New Year's. Is we went to a little town, Dhariwal, to a little a village. I don't even know if it has, a zip code or postal code or anything, and saw the concrete open air rooftop where he grew up with his 4 brothers and sisters and his parents.
It's still there?
And it is not only still there, my cousin who lives in Chandigarh came and met us because he knew how to, it's not like, here's the address of, this little,
Right.
thing. He knew how to drive there based on landmarks.
Yeah.
And he drove us there, and he showed us 2 things. My paternal grandfather was the headmaster of a high school, and he knew where that high school was. So we drove there, and my dad had not obviously been back there for a very long time. And we went inside. It was like a Saturday early morning, like 7, 8 in the morning. There was no one there but a security guard. And my cousin spoke to the security guard and explained to him, like, this is the son of the old headmaster here. We went inside to the headmaster's office, and there was the plaque with my grandfather's name in the 1950s as the headmaster. And I have a photo of my dad and my wife sitting at the headmaster's desk, and behind them, the plaque with all the names of the headmasters. And there's, Sri Gangaram. So that was super cool for my dad. And then, to answer your question, went from there to this little dirt road, and off the dirt road there was a path, and it led to a little cinder block, sort of like a 2-story, but the second story didn't have a roof, kind of like a house. And there were stairs that went up one side to get onto the open roof. And as we were going up there, someone called to us from the open door on the first floor. And it was my cousin, my wife, myself, my dad. And we went inside there, and there was a man there who was crippled. He was, I think he makes his living as a fortune teller, sort of a psychic, like you know what I mean?
Tarot card reader.
Sort of like a tarot card reader. And, he's obviously, old. He's 80s or 90s, and he can't get out of bed. But he heard my dad's voice and called to him. 60 years later?
Wow.
We went inside, and we had, of course, now to go into his bedroom. And he sat there. He sat up. He saw my dad. He embraced him. And on his bedside table was an old photograph of my father's family. My dad was like 5 years old. And this is obviously a very emotional thing for my father, for my, my family. And then Dad took us upstairs to the roof. And, it's hard to imagine now having, Dad came here as an engineer from IBM, shocking, Indian engineer. Imagine, designing chips, and had built a life where, my brother and I never worried about food, about having a roof over our heads. And we're standing there on a rooftop, and he's like, this is where we slept. My mom, my dad, my 4 brothers and sister, and 1 sister and I. And so that side of my family is from India. Most of my family now in India is from Ghaziabad to Chandigarh, Amritsar, that area. And my parents met because they were both at IBM. My mom was from Brooklyn. She was by descent, English and French, and other things. But she was a systems programmer. And they had a mutual friend up in Poughkeepsie, New York, Siddharth, who was like telling my dad, hey, you should go out with this girl. Da, da, da. And my dad was such a shy, sweet little guy, didn't do anything for months. And Siddharth was like, come on, you go over her department, say hi, take her to lunch. Did nothing. And then one day, I guess Siddharth said, she makes more money than you do. And my dad was like, what is this country where the women make so much money? I must find out what she does. Thanks to that, I am here, and my brother and I were born.
Were you born in New York?
Yeah, I was born in Poughkeepsie. It's a big IBM town, and then grew
Okay.
up. My dad started working for the division of IBM that did the DoD work, called the Federal Systems Division, which is just outside the Pentagon. So
Okay.
then, when I was really little, we moved to Northern Virginia and lived inside the Beltway, and that's where my
Okay.
little brother was born.
Okay.
Is your
So anyway,
father's?
that's the story of a young Lebanese child. Okay, Amit.
Yeah, that's fine. Is your father still around?
My dad is not only still around, he lives 3 minutes away. After this podcast, he announced in WhatsApp he's coming over with some fresh mangoes that he found. He said, I found very good mangoes today. I cut them up and bring them over.
That's awesome.
So I'll be seeing him.
Sweet.
So we can carry on with this podcast. I was going to terminate it if you went Indian.
Lebanese explorers. You should have multiple podcasts.
With AI, we might get there. Steven, when we did our intro chat, what I found most interesting about you was not what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I thought I was the Leo DiCaprio of our Indian generation because I married someone 8 years younger. But then you told me you married someone 17 years younger.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to hear that story. We want to know more about your wife. Where's she from? How did you meet?
Trust me, as soon as you guys meet my wife, Sabrina, if my wife comes to our lunch, you'll end up being friends with her and you'll forget about me. You're like, please. We just want to know Laura. So when I was young, I was very lucky. I got admitted to the University of Southern California, Los Angeles.
You were 14.
When I was living in Virginia.
Correct.
I was 14.
Yeah.
So I took the opportunity. Between they and IBM, they were very generous. They paid me to go to school. So it was a really easy decision because my parents didn't have a lot of money. And it was like, USC will give me free room and board, free tuition. And then IBM, I was a Watson scholar. So IBM paid me on top of that. So I had spending money. So my parents didn't have to spend money for me to go to college, which was good for obvious reasons. So growing up in Los Angeles, I don't know that probably any, I would say, of my friends are on their first marriage. And when I was in college, when you're like, 14, 18, 16, whatever, and it's all talking about your friends' parents, and none of them are on their first marriage. And it was just insane, this concept of like, oh yeah, so-and-so is now married to so-and-so, and so, oh, we're sharing custody, and all these like things I learned about like sharing custody with children. And it looked really hard. And it put me off to marriage. I spent a lot of my time working in film, which obviously is a business that takes a lot of your time. So it's easy not to get married and have children. Just saying, you know what? It's not my path. I'm not smarter than my friends. I see them going through horrible divorces, painful custody agreements. I was like, I'm just not going to do that. I'll be a wonderful, friend to my friends, friend to my friends' children. And that's good. And when I got out of film, I got back into tech because remember I had been a software engineer back in IBM and all that. So I got back into tech and I did a company that was like a collaborative photo sharing sort of company. It was almost, if you imagine Instagram being very me, very selfie, let me show you me. I was thinking, what if you actually, when you saw your friend's selfie, you could send back a selfie and start a conversation and make it more we than me, right? Ultimately, we got to about 60,000 users. It was not enough to raise our A round. We raised a seed round of like 3.5. And I had to shut that down. And it was crushing on my ego because I had just come off like big hit movies. And in film, like I had a nice reputation. I'd worked very hard. And this was like, you now failed. You failed in a big public way.
Humbling.
And,
being there. So
the ego death thing and all that. And it was terrible. Because I would go to eat. I would go to the dry cleaners and some friend would be like, hey, how's your thing going? And you're like, actually, yeah, I had to shut it down last month. And I'm a failure, right? So a friend had asked me to help. They needed to sell a property in New York and said, why don't you get out of LA, come to Manhattan, be here for a bit. It'd be good just to clean your mind, clean your slate, right? And as I think I mentioned to you, when we were talking before, I have a daily yoga practice. So I went to New York. I didn't call any of my friends in New York. I didn't even tell them I was there. I worked, I went to yoga, I slept. And I just did that as I processed what should I have done differently? What are the lessons I should take away from this while they were fresh? I did that for months. Like, it was really odd. And the yoga class where I went, that's where I met Laura. I literally married the girl on the mat to my left.
Aw,
And it
that's
was,
sweet.
it's a wonderful thing. She is incredibly honest, incredibly sincere. And it made me feel very safe.
That's
You know
beautiful.
exactly where you stand with her. So, um, there was a conversation, early on where it's like, hey, you know what? Like, I'm almost 2 decades older than you are. She's like, I don't care. I just love us together. Like, let's talk about what kind of life we want to have. And then we ended up in Austin. Sabrina, were you here for Snowpocalypse?
I sure was.
Okay. We were coming during the pandemic. We got out of the country. We're living largely in the Middle East, in the Emirates and in Turkey and stuff like that, right? And then we were traveling on to Bali in Indonesia, and we had a 1 week break between the two. So I called Dad up in Austin, Texas. I was like, "Hey, Dad, rather than get our stuff out of storage in the United States and put it back in storage a week later, can we just stay with you for a week?" That week was Snowpocalypse. So we were stuck here for a couple of weeks, and Laura fell in love with it. And as I mentioned, she and my dad like love each other, and it's been a wonderful experience. I've never been closer to my dad. He comes over, he drops in all the time. Like, I'll be on a Zoom, and like Dad will walk in. I'm like, "Hey, okay, it's my dad."
There he
Just
is.
came over here. He's like, "You know what? I was at the market and they had fantastic pomegranates. Do you want some?"
That's so sweet. That's so nice. He's so close.
It's amazing. I've never been this close to him
So you
ever in
come
my life.
that week, and I mean, Texas shuts down, and then you
Yeah.
guys decide we love it here. And
Yeah. Well, you couldn't do much here. So we would go walking at night. And we met, we have a friend who runs this dinner series called the Supper Club.
okay.
And she's from London. She'd done the first one. I joined probably 12 years ago, maybe a little more, in Los Angeles. And now she has chapters in New York, Miami, San Francisco, and I was talking to her that week. I was like, "Damn, so you wouldn't believe this. Like, I'm in Texas. The state shut down. Like, it snowed here. In New York, it would be called like Tuesday. And here it's
Yes.
called the end of the world."
Yes.
And she was like, "Oh, I have a new chapter I just opened. You should go to dinner there." We walked in to dinner. We're like, "Hey, we're friends at Damson's. Like, we're new in town." Half the people in that room are our friends now.
Oh, that's so
Yeah.
nice.
So I've been
Austin's cool. Austin's
Austin's
really
cool.
cool.
And yeah, and just have my dad around because he's getting older and we're going to have kids next year and he'll get to come over and sit on the sofa and play with his grandkids. And like, you need to have a reason to be alive, whether you call it
That's great. So
ikigai or
you're
whatever you
starting
want.
a family
Oh
with
yeah.
kids.
We have 9 embryos frozen in liquid nitrogen back in Santa Monica.
That's awesome. All the
Congratulations.
best to you guys.
So thank you so much, Sabrina. Does that answer your question?
I would say yes.
He is
Okay.
the Leonardo DiCaprio, not you.
That guy is awesome, huh? Moment the girl hits 25, incredible. What happened
Yes,
to him?
yeah, he's living a crazy life.
I tell you.
Okay, so I'd love to ask you. So you're in software engineering. That's what you
Mhm.
go to USC at 14, because most 14-year-olds are not doing that.
No, actually, I knew I had obviously been trained. My mom was a systems programmer, and I learned how to code. But I went to school for broadcast journalism and business because I had done a TV show in the DC Baltimore market, and that is, I think, what caught USC's attention.
Okay.
They're like, "Who's this guy who's like this
At this
young,
age.
doing
Yeah.
this like music?" Because we had the #1 youth show in the DC Baltimore market. And it was a very simple show. It was a half-hour show, 3 segments. Each segment was news that we wrote. It's like high schoolers. We wrote, we researched, and then the end of each segment was an interview. And at the time, this was pre-Facebook. There were not a lot of channels for adults to talk to kids, right? So by virtue of the fact that we had this show that was very popular with kids, we had the mayor of DC come on. We had Sugar Ray Leonard, who was a big boxer at the time. We had anyone who wanted to be sort of like, "Oh, I'm down with the kids." That's what you did. There was no Nickelodeon, awards where you got slimed. That didn't exist yet. So it was really easy to get people on who were wanted to say like, "Oh yeah, I'm totally down with the kids." So I think that's what attracted USC, and the Annenberg School is a great, communications, like journalism school. Great job.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think you're fascinating, Stephen. I think you're very interesting.
Ooh.
And then when I saw what you do in your website with the Sukha, and I saw the video,
Mhm.
and I said to myself, "Oh, so this guy's wasting his time." Like this guy claims to want to get people together and focus, yet
Mhm.
he's developed something which is the most distracting thing I've ever seen in my life.
Okay,
So
before
maybe,
you continue, you sent it to me on WhatsApp, and I was like,
yeah,
"Oh, this is so cool." And you're like, "Why is it cool?"
yeah. So
Continue
Stephen,
now.
in your own words, explain to us what it is, the Sukha, your mission, how you got there, and how's it going?
Sure. I'm going to ask you a question first. I totally respect your opinion. But first, let me ask you this. In college, did you study alone in your dorm room, or did you ever go to like a study hall or the library to study or something like that?
I did both.
You did both.
I did
Okay.
both. I did both.
Okay.
I did both because sometimes I wanted to be alone and
Mm-hmm.
focus,
Yep.
and sometimes I wanted to see girls, so I would go and like go to the. I did both. Yeah.
Noted. Okay. Gotcha. Sabrina, where did you see girls? I'm kidding. Where did you study?
You know what? The same.
Okay. So you had solo experience and you had group experience, right?
Yes, but
We're normal. We're normal.
I need background noise to focus.
Mhm.
I cannot just sit alone quiet. Like if I'm at home, even to this day, and I'm working, I have
Yep.
like the TV on the background. I'm not paying attention, but it's like background
Correct.
noise.
Yes.
And COVID for me was a little tough because I
Mhm.
needed socialization. I'm an extrovert.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Just
understand
to
that.
add, just to
Mhm.
add to that,
Yes.
I actually, when Sabrina mentioned that when she wanted noise, I now sleep with white noise because of my
Oh,
kids, with the
yeah.
babies. And when I was studying, I tell you, Jodeci and Belle Biv DeVoe was always in the background,
That's
right?
awesome.
You know that "Come and Talk to Me," and you know that "Shy" song, that a cappella song.
Just on repeat.
Yeah, so they were basically there at this hip hop like video cassette, like tape cassette, and I had it on. So my friends would come in the room and they're like, "Oh no, how can you hear this black, crazy, slow crying music the whole time?" And I
Dum,
was like, "Is it?"
da-da-dum,
I was like,
da-dum.
I was like, "Is it on?" Oh, I didn't
Yeah.
notice. But it
Yeah.
would just get me in my mood. But that's music because of the tune and the rhythm.
To- Totally with you. They're very valid.
Yeah.
So there is a researched and named phenomenon around what you're talking about, which is often called the coffee shop effect, which is the helpful background noise that allows us to actually focus, which sounds counterintuitive until you've experienced it, which both of you have, right? So that's the thing, which is there are some people who need silence, but there's a large group of people who are like, I need some sort of information coming in through my ears that allows me to tune things out. So it's super cool.
So
So
tell us about the product. Like,
yeah, so this is the thing is during the pandemic, I was running a company, and the pandemic forced us to be remote, right?
Right.
And there were lessons that came out of that. And then when I started this company, I had the choice to be remote, which I did choose. And here's what I found: all of the benefits of remote work, are true. You can hire from a global talent pool, not just people who are driving distance from your office, right? Huge. The flexibility, you can kind of structure your day differently. You don't lose half an hour, 2 hours a day to commuting. All these things, fantastic. Check, 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 check. But the long-term thing that I felt, and a number of friends who are doing this felt, is it becomes isolating. It becomes lonely. That we humans, we do want that water cooler interaction where maybe I'm only out of my desk for 5 minutes and I go and I chat and hey, Amin, how are you? How's your kid? Oh, that's super great. Okay, see you. There is something to looking up, whether you're in study hall in college, whether you're a writer who works in a coffee shop, which, by the way, coming from film, that was something I did. There's this famous Starbucks on Sunset across from the Directors Guild. And I'm telling you, you walk in there, it's quiet. I mean, there's the Starbucks stupid music playing, right? But I mean, it's like no one's really chatting, but it's filled with writers. And in one corner, there's that old guy who's written like 3 produced movies and he wrote the Avengers draft. And on the left side of you, there are 2 guys who
Pulitzer,
just off the bus.
That's so
Pulitzer Prize
cool.
winners in the corner.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. But because it's all their habit. And it's a thing of like, I would rather sit here and be part of a community of people focused and trying to do something. We're all trying to write the next great TV pilot, or we're trying to write the next great summer movie, whatever the thing is. But it's energizing me around people. It's the exact same reason I do yoga in a studio with people. I am totally aware my body could do all the asana in my living room with an iPad. It does not energize my heart the same way as going to a studio where there are 50 or 60 other people all trying to do this thing and trying to create something in their bodies and this feeling in their spirit together. That charges me up. I will drive to have that group experience. It's why Nike makes shoes individually, but they organize running clubs. The Navy SEALs train individually. Any single Navy SEAL is a lethal weapon, but they go on missions to get Osama bin Laden together because they're stronger as a team.
But
And
what's that
that's
going
what
to do? What's that going to do with your product? Like,
what it's got to do there is
explain your product. Explain your product for someone who's not gone to your website and gone to that YouTube video.
Sure. So our product is a co-working website. And by that, I mean, you can come there and hit play when you start your day in the morning, and you'll see avatars of people around the world, silent. There's no audio. You can't hear someone rustling their papers or tapping on the keyboard. We don't never ask for the microphone, but you can see people around the world, little static images that refresh every 10 seconds of people around the world working. So when you are working, you can look up and say, like, oh my God, all these people. There's that CPA in Oregon. There's that developer in Munich. Oh, there's those two designers in Hyderabad. Da, da, da. And there's a
you don't know
chat.
them.
You don't know
you're
them.
physically not there and you don't know them. So
Exactly.
You're literally seeing strangers.
Yeah, just like a coffee shop. You will go and walk in a coffee shop.
And they're actual people, correct?
Yeah, real people. The other people who's using this, right? Who just want the feeling of like, I'm part of something. I sit at my kitchen table too many years in a row. I like this feeling of being together. So there's a co-working aspect. When you finish something, you can post it to the group chat. Like one time a day, your most important task, you can hit a button when you complete it. It says, do you want to share this? And what is so interesting now, because we've been running since March, right? Is that you have people who do not know each other. Like I run the platform. I know that these people do not know each other. And they talk to each other in the group chat. Like one guy posted he finished his dissertation last week. And if you go in the group chat, you don't have to trust me. You can literally read it. All these people around the world were like, Roy, congratulations. We've been watching you for months grind out your dissertation. He's like, yeah, now I just have to present it. Like I'm all but ABD or whatever it's called. And he's like, now I just have to present it. And to see that kind of enthusiasm around, I'm trying to achieve something in my life. You are too. I see you, man. And I support you. And there are days when I'm having a frustrating time and I need your support. That feels great to be getting support and giving support. And that's why
a stranger's support is satisfying.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's like social media, right? It's the same thing. You post a picture, you post a reel, and you're getting comments from strangers.
Yeah, but social media is the opposite. Social media is like, you suck. Mine's bigger than yours.
Not everyone.
You should really look at who follows you on social media, Amit.
I mean, come on. On X?
By the way, I only posted you suck once, okay? Just once.
Yeah.
Bring that up.
Yeah. I mean, on X, it's, that's the reason why my friend Professor Scott Galloway got out of X, right? He went to Threads.
Yeah. So the answer to your question is there's that aspect of it, which is it's a co-working space where you can come and like you walk into a coffee shop anywhere in the world, hear people who are all striving to do something, and it's energizing. It's like running with people. Maybe you're not friends with other people in your Nike running club, but you get out there at 8 a.m. and you run and you're in it together. And that's a powerful feeling as a human. As humans, we need humans to feel human.
Yeah.
And
so
then,
Steven, I was going to say, this reminded me about 2 weeks ago, a very good friend of mine that I used to work with in nonprofit asked, are you free? Can I call you? I need some professional advice. So for the first time, she FaceTimes me. And so I click it on my laptop. And while she's talking, I'm listening, but I'm also sending a few emails. And she's like, okay. And I actually said this was 2 weeks ago. I was like, we should do this more often where you're just in my screen and I'm working and you're working. And when we need to talk, we talk. If not, and it's so funny. I actually said that 2 weeks ago.
Well, Sabrina, thank you so much for saying that.
What's that?
Thank you for saying that. By the way, that's called, thank you. That's called body doubling. And it is a principle on which we built this. And by the way, body doubling is very popular in the neurodivergent, like in the ADHD, ADD communities, because there's something about having someone quietly there while you work.
Sabrina, thank you. I'm at 0, Steven 1. I think that's
Well,
For
there's three
sure.
people, so that means there's always going to be a winner. There are no ties, no draws here.
what's the plan? I mean,
Yeah.
when are you
What is the
revenue
plan?
generating? When are you raising? When are you raising your next round? Sabrina will participate in that. Tell us about the business.
The business side of it is the parts of the app I did mention is we offer all the usual focus tools. So it is a co-working space, but just like if you walk in a WeWork, you expect to have tables and chairs and water and fun kitchen. In this
Free
case,
beer,
free
unlimited
beer,
beer
right?
at WeWork.
Exactly. But you expect those like it's a co-working space, but here are the things I expect with it. We give you all these focus tools. So there are over 1,000 hours of focus music, lo-fi beats, sounds of rain, sounds of streams, surf, forests, upbeat, down tempo, like tons of stuff. There are Pomodoro timers because time boxing is another very valid, like I've incorporated that in my life. It's amazing. You give yourself 30 minutes for something, you'll get it done in 30 minutes. It stops the time sprawl. So we give you all these things, Pomodoro timers, music, task lists. If you want to keep your tasks, you can, see, we give you a productivity score. So you can see day over day, week over week, am I getting better? Did I block my distractions better? How am I doing? And there's a leaderboard. It's super fun. People compete to like have the best scores. Like, I'm very focused today. I did a great job. And they'll screenshot the leaderboard and post it to their social media going like, look, I won, the focus award today. So
I
where
could,
we're going with this is, sorry?
yeah, I could see this becoming a dating app as well.
Okay. See, there's a recurring, it's a leitmotif
No,
here of like, I'm at
because they're
meet women.
lonely. No, because they're lonely
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
that need this distraction. Many of them
Mhm.
are actually lonely and single.
Yeah.
And then, hey, if they see, I'm assuming they're photographs of the person.
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, if you see someone that looks attractive and they
Yeah.
happen to be, within a certain distance from you, you can reach out and say, hey, how about we do this next time together at this
Hmm.
Starbucks and Sunset?
That is exactly right. And you can, when you see the avatars, you can click on anybody's avatar. You can see what they're listening to. Like, oh, Amit loves listening to, lo-fi beats and he's in, Chile or whatever. Da, da. Oh,
Yeah,
Sabrina's in San Antonio and she's listening to, this other playlist. So it gives you a little context like, oh, I kind of get you. And you can then DM them. It opens
yeah.
up a little DM window if you want
That's
to talk to
cool.
them and do exactly what you said. Hey,
You know
let's,
what? Music doesn't work for me when I'm working. I need, like I
Mhm.
said, like a TV show, people talking. So,
Mhm.
like for me, it would be more like a watching 24 again in the background.
Great show. Yeah.
That would be
And
me.
by the way, you want to know you're going to laugh. One of our most popular playlists is 2-hour recording of a coffee shop in Vienna, Austria.
Oh,
And it
wow.
is simply the sounds of people making like, I don't drink coffee, but making the baristas making the foam and
They
people
like
with,
the sound of that.
it
That's,
sounds like you're in a coffee shop and
yeah.
people just listen to it on repeat because it feels like you're there and it's a background walla, as we call it in film of, oh yeah, I'm around people that are doing stuff, but and there's no talking in that playlist.
Can I share something with both of you that happened to me last night?
I think you're going to.
I don't know if it's relevant to this conversation, but last night, it's been a while since I've seen a movie, not a
Mhm.
TV show like Cobra Kai, a proper movie. And I
Yeah.
said, I feel like watching a movie. And a few months ago in this podcast, I told Sabrina that I've been thinking a lot. And what keeps me up at night is this nuclear war.
Okay.
So I don't know why I just woke up one day thinking that, the world's going to end. And then I saw last night The Sum of All Fears,
Oh
the
wow,
Ben Affleck.
the old Tom Clancy movie.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Wow.
So I saw that, when Ben Affleck was good looking,
Yeah.
before
Is that back
they
as old as Maverick 2, which Pooja hasn't seen?
basically before, yes, correct. That's incredible that she doesn't know what Tom Cruise is. Anyway,
Who's
um,
this?
You had
Sundaria.
Sundaria on, remember? And he's
Oh,
giving
yeah.
her like a hard
Oh,
time
that's
about like,
right. She did say that.
come on, you've seen Top Gun. You've seen Top Gun
Yeah.
too. She's like, I haven't. He's like, who are you? How are you on my show?
I tell you, I have a best friend who hadn't seen Indiana Jones and Star Wars. I had to take him to the
Oh,
movies.
wow.
He grew up in
That's
Nigeria, but anyway,
Okay, hold on. No,
back to
I have to interrupt you. Raiders of the Lost Ark is probably my favorite movie.
it's a great one.
And
top
I
10.
will ask you this one question. Sabrina, have you seen it?
Yes, yes, but it's been a
Okay.
long time. It's been a
If you
long time.
ever watch it again, I will tell you, it is not only a fun, entertaining, great movie, but the writing is this good. This is how good the character writing is. When you watch it again, realize the outcome of the movie would be exactly the same if Indiana Jones had never been born. He has absolutely no effect on the plot. The movie would end the same way. Find one other action movie in history where the hero does not affect the outcome. And people, including myself, love that movie because the character writing is astounding.
That reminds me of that. What's that Bruce Willis movie? The night, the Shyamalan, the one that he's dead.
Oh, yeah, the Sixth
Oh,
Sense.
Sixth Sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so can I go
so
back to my
to you.
story,
Sorry,
Stephen?
that was my
I
side.
love movie talk.
Yeah, no. So the reason why I bring it up, because after watching that movie, I finished that movie,
Mhm.
and that, like 10 minutes after that movie, I came up with an idea, and that idea was so in my face, but I hadn't thought about it.
Mhm.
But watching that movie and then not thinking about the daily stress and just seeing the end of the world, and then just not thinking about that problem, and then
Mhm.
later coming back and the idea came up, and I had such a big smile in my face. I was like, wow, I really need to do stupid things like watch old movies so that
Mhm.
my mind actually, like, resets. And and I'm going to tell the idea after the pod, after this, to Sabrina. So
Ooh.
yeah, that's no, because it's about a business about me and Sabrina. That's why it's nothing to do with
Okay. So this actually is a great jumping off point, because I'll tell you something that got me into film, which has a lot to do with my dad being from India. When I was little, I was very lucky, as I mentioned to you, to go to India a bunch, have a bunch of the Indian books. Like, remember, there's this Black Cat, the story of all these horror stories and urban, fables or whatever in India. Read the Mahabharata, read the Ramayana, like all these things, which was unique in my school. Like where I was in Northern Virginia, I was the only brown kid, Lebanese to you. And that meant I got to see how we were taught the Iliad and the Odyssey and these sort of Western myths. And also know, wow, the parallels to what like my dad's, my cousins, do they get how similar these are? Right. And when we were in India, we would go to movies, right? It's what you did. 4-hour movies. And I remember having this moment. I don't know if I was 6, 8, 10 years old, but I remember having this like epiphany where I was like, it's so interesting. My parents and their friends, we were at this dinner in Chandigarh, and they were arguing their heads off about some aspect of something like, oh, what, Pooja's father said about her boyfriend and the thing, arguing. But we would go to a movie that, from my little 8-year-old point of view, was about the exact same thing, and they all loved it. And it was interesting to me the way there was this magic of the movie where it's like that thing that was hard to digest, when it was delivered in that way, it was like it created unity, as opposed to dinner fights about like, well, I can't believe her father would say that, right? And I thought to myself, there's something magical about when you tell a lesson through a story. And that became very interesting to me in my late teens, early 20s, when, because I knew, computer graphics, because I knew how to code, I got into films through the back door, which is when film became digital, I was in LA. And it was like, hey, you know how to program, you know how to code, and you also seem personable enough. You could talk to a director or a producer, come over here. And I started producing digital effects for movies. And that's how I met a lot of directors. I was very lucky. I got to produce for Cameron, for Woody Allen, for Mel Gibson, for David Fincher, for Spielberg, for, I work with a lot of the top directors because they had the money to pay for the kind of work that we did, right? So I didn't work with a lot of first-time directors. And the thing that fascinated me and why I got into film was really born of seeing Indian movies when I was little, seeing and reading Indian fairy tales and myths, and going, there's something magical about delivering this lesson, not by telling someone, but by sticking it into a story. And they go, oh yeah, absolutely. That is why the fox would say to the bear this thing. And you're like, you were just arguing about the same thing between two people, but here it just slides in.
Yeah, that's why we're doing what we do, right? With this podcast, because it's all about the stories.
Yeah,
We don't ask questions about finance or investments. It's more like, what's your story? Who are you? Like,
Yeah.
how did you get a girl younger than, I did? That's what we want to know. Those are the tricky.
Hey, and we have to mention you and your team won an Oscar.
Yeah, we did the effects for Independence Day, and it was pretty fun, and that helped me
The
raise
Will Smith?
money.
Amazing movie.
The Will Smith one?
Yeah, and we raised $15 million. The first company that I started, we started that in the in the wake of doing Independence Day and winning the Oscar. So that was a great path to raising money, because it's like, hey, we know what we're doing. We just won an Oscar, and
Yeah.
then we ended up selling that company a few years later. That was my first exit, and it was a great thing to be like in my early 20s, be like, oh man, we just had a 6x exit over just a couple of years. Now in venture,
Sabrina,
it's like you need a 1,000x exit, but at the time for me, I was like, wow, we raised 15, we sold this for almost 100. Cool.
that's awesome. Sabrina,
So
I think we
amazing.
should change our rapid fire to only movie
Yes, yes.
questions. Yeah, we should change
Okay.
it. Well, we're not there yet. We're not there yet. Stephen, we ask all our guests one question. Just because our producers tell us that we have to have one topic of
Yes.
what the podcast is about, right?
Yeah.
So it's about success.
Mhm.
Um, what does success mean to you, and how has that definition evolved over your young age?
What it means to me now is optionality. Success is I get to do what I want to do. And some days that may be getting up and making breakfast for my wife and then soon my little son and daughter, and not being like, oh, yeah, I have to go out into the fields and start plowing the fields. It's just the option of doing either one. Um, when I was in Los Angeles, I think success was very set upon the field of mimetics, like Rene Girard, and the idea of like you learn what it is you desire by seeing what other people tell you should desire, that sort of thing. And in Los Angeles, I think it was a lot of, well, I should be chairman of a studio, or I should be like running a bunch
Fit.
of movies. And
I
sorry,
should have a six. I should have a six pack in
man, I wish I
LA.
had a six pack. I'm pretty good at
Yeah,
yoga, but I can't take out a six pack.
yeah.
Um, Nor do I drink, so it's not like I have that six pack either. But I remember thinking I want to be chairman of the studio, like either like running a company like Paramount, or I want to be a producer that has a stable of stuff, like Bruckheimer, for example, or Ron Howard and Brian Grazer. Those were very much my idea of success. Was like I need to get there. And then at a certain point, I saw the business was just like, when I had gotten into film, it was expanding. It was just like everyone wanted to be in media, and then social media, video games, and you just saw the box office going down. And it meant that at the studio, there was a feeling of like contraction. It was like we're being assailed on every side. The kids don't want to see movies as much anymore. And that's when I was like, this is not fun.
Yeah. Did you ever meet what's the Pixar guy? Ed Catmull? The guy who
Only
wrote Creativity?
Ed Catmull I have met. We are not friends. We're not like tight buddies, but yes, I produced a lot of visual effects, computer generated effects. So I
Yeah.
met him at SIGGRAPH. We'd been, I think, on panels and stuff like that, but we were not like buddies that hung out and had coffee together. No,
I'm
I
not a reader.
incredible respect. An amazing, amazing human being. Just
I'm not a reader, but that book is a must read.
Mhm,
It's up there with Shoe Dog, Nike's book. I loved it.
mhm. Yeah.
Sabrina, sorry, where do you want to go next?
I mean, there's still so much to like
Yeah, go
discuss
for it.
about you. You've done so much in your life. I mean, what I know there's yoga, but what else do you
Mhm.
do to find balance and to take care of your mental health? I know that's a, you know,
Yeah. And
a
can I just
really
add to that?
Yeah.
I want to also find out the decision about, how you're having babies, if that's something you don't mind touching
Oh,
on.
we could totally talk about that. Actually, I think the two are probably intertwined. As I mentioned to you guys, like I had a huge wound I was carrying around about being in a long-term partnership, having a family, stuff, largely born of watching my friends and my friends' families and going, God, if it's so hard for them, I'm not smarter than they are. I'll probably screw up too. I don't want to do this. Right. So it's very clear to be like, every relationship began with the ending. It was always, this is super fun. I want you to know, like, I'm not interested in getting married. That's a deal killer. Let's just be friends. So with Laura, meeting her in the context of yoga and then getting to know very quickly within like the first second date, like just how honest she was. Like she has no guile. Like she doesn't manipulate in any way. She's just straight up. This is who I am. You can love me or hate me, but I'm not going to change for you. Not in a mean way, but just I'm presenting to you, this is my true self. And that
right.
was awesome. Right.
So she's not Indian.
She's she's not Indian. She's not Indian. She has some really great saris though. Dad on the last trip, the trip before last, got her some beautiful saris, like the silver inlay and stuff. It's very nice. So in my relationship with Laura, I realized I crossed a line one day where I thought to myself, the world would actually be better if there were little versions of her. And that made me think, oh, okay, so that's having children. That's something that I don't want to do. Do I still hold to that belief if I don't want to do that? And I made a it's like non-emotional, but intellectual decision of like, I think that's no longer true in my life. I think what's true now is, since I have a partnership with her, I actually think this would be a great thing for the world to have little Lauras running around. So
Can I just interrupt you there a second, Stephen?
Yeah.
That's the biggest slap in my face. I'll tell you why. When you said those words, all I could think about was, this guy's opposite to me. Because when I wanted to have babies, all I could think about was, oh, I'd love to see another little amitus, like a bunch of me's. I never once thought, oh,
Of
it'd
your
be so
wife.
good it'd be so good, to have my wife like other people like my wife. I was such a sexist, old school, this is an instrument, like I just thought about myself. And now I have 3 sons, so I'm thinking more about myself.
I know
So,
your poor wife.
so I'm just hearing Steven speak, and what a
You
genuine,
just listen. I'm like,
loving,
that is so beautiful.
what a man should be like, and what I am, and what a man should be like. Sabrina, I just feel like just ending this podcast right now.
Okay. Calm down, you guys. We do have some little Stevens coming. Okay, so this is what we did. A good friend of mine, Johnny Jane, obviously Indian, right? Canadian, but Indian. He was one of the top IVF doctors in this country. Very graciously for our engagement, because he knew what this meant to me. Like, I've known Johnny since sophomore year of college, so about 4,000 years.
40 years, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, right? So he had built a very successful practice in IVF and wanted to meet Laura. When I moved back to LA, to SF in LA, Johnny was like, I want you to bring her over for dinner, just the 3 of us, because I have to figure out who this is that you think you could actually marry. Like, this is shocking news. What is it about her that's different, right? Because I've dated amazing people and just stayed very true to, there's no marriage in my future. So we did this, and Johnny understood. He met her, understood. And he said, listen, for your engagement gift, I will do a cycle of IVF for you.
A what?
A cycle of IVF.
What does that mean?
A round of IVF.
Yeah.
A round of IVF. Okay.
It was like, exactly, right? He said, I will do that for you for free. It was a great thing because, as you talked about, I'm older than Laura, and there's a lot of thing with, there are a lot of opportunities with male DNA as it gets older, that it gets fragmented. It has methylation, like the epigenetics. So you're essentially passing along half the information to make the baby. And this was a way, he said, he's like, you know what? Why don't we see how many eggs we get from Laura? We'll fertilize the eggs. And then we'll do some screening just to make sure you don't have trisomies or weird, paternally passed along genetic problems. And that was an incredibly generous thing that he did.
And how old was she at
She
this
was
age?
32, maybe.
Okay, so young.
30. Yeah. So she's very fertile. She had 48 eggs in one cycle, which is like 99th percentile. Like,
wow.
Her mom's really fertile. She's one of 4. Her mom's like one of 8. Like, her maternal line is like fertile myrtle, right?
What's the average, Sabrina?
I mean, mine was terrible. My cycle was terrible. It was like
6 to 8, something like that.
Huh.
Under 10. Yeah.
Under 10.
Under 10. Yeah. So we didn't fertilize all of them. Johnny's like, you don't need 48 fertilized embryos. He's like, how about we fertilize a few of them and freeze the rest, right? So we did that. And we went through, the gender sorting. And I know that we have 6 girls and 3 boys that passed all the genetic screening. And that's what we're going to do in January, is we will defrost one of the boys. Our hope, and this, of course, tell life your plans so that she can laugh, right? Our hope is that we have, the older boy next fall, and that by being the older boy to the younger sister, maybe 2 years later, there's a sense of chivalry, that he's somewhat like protective of the younger sister, which is something I would like to see more of. I don't believe the 2 genders are the same. I think they're equal, but different.
Yeah.
And
so you want to have 2, you've agreed with Laura to have 2 children.
That's our plan. That was our plan. We just ended up having 48 eggs, which was like an abundance of riches.
That's amazing.
I know, isn't it? Yeah, Sabrina appreciates it. Yeah.
Son and then daughter 2 years later is the plan.
Yes. And you want to know something funny is, so Laura and I talked about doing this. Before we got married, there was a year we separated. And it was a very hard, strange year. We had some problems. And in that year, I think we sorted through a lot of stuff on our own and came back together. So when we came back together, Laura had reached out to me and said, hey, let's go to this park this Saturday and sit in the park. I want to share with you my journal. Okay. That seems very thoughtful. So we're there, and I notice on the inside of her wrist, she has a sort of very simple line drawing of a lotus.
Oh, wow, look.
Hold on,
A
I make
lotus.
glasses for that.
It's a lotus.
Oh, it's very similar. Yeah. She has a
Funny.
very similar thing, and it says Satya, which, as you know, Sanskrit concept. Now, what she did not know is my birth name is Satish, which is, as you know, derived from Satya. And it was really surprising. It was like, why did you get my name on your wrist? She's like, what are you talking about? I was like, you don't know. While we were apart for a year, you literally got my name tattooed on you, practically, for all intents and purposes. And so we talked about this going forward. She was like, I really love our children to have, Sanskrit names. And again, as I mentioned, she's close to my dad and they love each other. And she's like, I think this is a really nice thing to keep that culture alive in our family. And one of the names she wanted was Sukha. I was like, that's the name of my company. We can't name our child after my company. That'd be super weird. So
It's not a bad thing.
Yeah, talked her out of that one.
That's not a bad thing, right? A friend of mine has a company and his daughter is called Anya and his company is called Anya and it's doing really good business.
Okay, well, you know what? We will reconsider that then.
Yeah.
As soon as Bezos names his daughter Amazon, we're in.
Yeah. Sabrina, you freaked me out with the lotus.
You've never seen that? I've had it for years.
I've never noticed it. No, it freaked me out that the fact that Laura has also got the lotus.
No, yeah. You're right. I am going to ignore you and just hang out with her.
Oh, I'm telling you, she's amazing. Yeah.
So as you're telling this story, I'm thinking you're not the Indian Leonardo DiCaprio. You're more like the Indian George Clooney.
That's actually what my friends in film called me. Yeah. But I wasn't bringing it up. But that's more the model is just like, I think he married really well. He married someone he respected deeply.
Yeah.
I think you're right. Like Leo, very talented, very successful, all that, but definitely chooses partners that are not as equal.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually met him. So my cousin and her husband are friends with him. So this was like years before I think I was married, but about 20 years. He was dating Giselle at the time and very nice guy, came up to me, said, hi, I'm Leo. And I was like, well, no kidding. I mean, this was after Titanic. Very nice guy though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys won't believe me. You really won't believe me. But once a big, black, fat woman in the Amtrak train, when going down and getting the tickets.
Don't tell me she thought you were George Clooney.
I was sitting down with an Indian guy and she actually stopped and she freaked out. And she goes, oh my God, you're that guy. And I was like, no. And she said, yeah, you're Georgie, you're Clooney. And my friend next to me, this guy called Deepak Surtani, who I was working with, he looked at her and said, how much did he pay you? Like,
are you out of your mind?
Yeah, I was like, I had not heard that one before, but I'll take it. And it's something that's so unusual, you'll never forget.
Yeah.
Obviously, she was dumb, but
I mean, she was just saying you're a very handsome guy.
Yeah, that's
handsome. She confused you with another handsome guy. Just take the win.
Sabrina, this was over a decade ago. I did look like Clooney back then.
So so in DC, I worked for a member of Congress on the Capitol, and George Clooney was doing a show on HBO. Yes. Yeah. I went to the premiere and I asked our press secretary, I said, I don't ask to go to any events, but I have to go to this one. Yeah. Okay. And I met him and I was starstruck, right? I was in love with this man and I just newly married. I told my husband I need to go buy a new outfit, early 20s, I'm going. And I wish I was honest because back then I don't feel I was as confident because I thought the show was lousy.
Mhm.
And when he asked me what I thought, I told him it was brilliant. And I wish I was honest back then
Honestly,
and
yeah.
said, I think you
Should have
need to
asked
do
me.
this. I think
You
you
should
need
have
to do
asked me,
that. I
Sabrina.
Yeah.
know. Now I would be honest in a very respectful way, but I didn't. But I got to meet him, and the picture's framed somewhere in my house,
That's
probably
super
next to my
cool. Yeah.
bedside. I think it's next to my bedside.
Next to your husband and your daughter's picture,
Yeah.
before and after. What could have been, what is. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, enough about us and meeting George Clooney.
George
What
Clooney.
else? Tell us, I mean, before we get to the rapid fire, I mean,
Ooh.
what's next for you? Like, I know we have this beautiful company you're building.
Mhm.
What's the next dream?
No,
Children,
there's
Sukha.
there's not something that I'm really hiding from you guys. It is in my mind. I would like to build the office for the next generation, and I know that there's an element of the office that is distracting. I totally agree with you, but there's an element of that distraction that is human connection. So I would.
Do you know Naval Ravikant?
Who doesn't? He's famous. Yeah.
Okay, so Naval thinks that in the future, there is no offices. So we're going to get up in the morning,
Mhm.
and I'm going to check my phone,
Yep.
and the phone I'm going to have like Fiverr or Upwork. I'm going to have 10 jobs that are suited for my skill set,
Mhm.
and I just have to say yes or no, and
Yeah.
I just do the job from my coffee store, from my home, wherever I want.
Yep.
I'll complete the job, and I'll get paid, obviously in crypto and not in dollars.
But I
So
think there's a real, like, that creates isolation, and isolation has a real impact on your mental health,
And
your
physical health.
social health,
yeah,
And physical health.
and thus your physical health. Correct.
Yeah.
I
my,
mean,
my friend Professor Scott Galloway, he says that the biggest problem of this generation is A, they're lonely, and B, they're not having enough sex, and
Mhm.
C, that they're not going to work in person, and
Yeah.
therefore they're not basically getting the opportunity to get to know each other. There's no teamwork. A third of dating happens to be at work in the offices. The
Mhm.
other third happens to be in gyms or social cinemas or bars,
Yeah.
etc.
well,
And the
Stephen,
other
you're
third,
creating another opportunity for that, for everyone to get together
Sabrina,
while
thank you
working
for saying that.
remotely.
So
Yeah.
that is one of my big dreams is I mean, God willing, I would like for this to become like the office for this generation, where it allows you to have that light social interaction to meet people. Like you said, Amit, like suppose you see someone, whether it's an attractive person of the opposite sex or it's someone that's like you, or like, hey man, oh, you're an EE student in Hyderabad. I'm an E student at Columbia or whatever. Let's study together. Like whatever that is to form that bond. That is my big goal. And then my personal family goal is to be a good dad and husband.
yeah,
And
Stephen,
that's enough. Like if I can do those, we're good for this
Sabrina,
lifetime.
I'm going to
I'm
give
sure you
Stephen
will.
I'm going to give Stephen 2 points, but I'm going to give myself a point because he just said something that, we don't tolerate in this episode, which is he said opposite sex, assuming that gays and, lesbians cannot also
You know what?
interact.
You're right.
You know what?
Thanks. You're right.
You
Yes.
You
know,
know what?
I
This
want
is
to
the
put that
first
out.
time he
I
has
want to
been
put that out.
politically correct.
I'm like you. I'm
Yeah.
like you, but the fact that I spotted it, it's like, wow, I'm becoming woke. Like, whoa.
I always
Whatever
call
it
him
may be.
out on this stuff.
Yes. As long as you can see someone. And by the way, there's a very interesting. Do you know who Bob Putman is? He has a book out. You know Bob
You
Putman
shared
is.
you shared the article. That's why.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
shared the
that's right.
article.
Yeah. So
I didn't
what
share it with Sabrina, so it's my bad.
Okay, so Sabrina, he wrote this famous book, Bowling Alone. And he talked about how this is now like 20 years ago. He was one of the early ones to talk about how we're diverging in society and we're not forming social bonds. And he basically said there are two kinds of social capital. There's two types of social bonds. There's bonding, which is you are like I am. We have similar values, similar background, economic status. Oh, let us hang out together somewhere. And then there's bridging, which is you and I are not alike, but we're going to hang out together, right? And he said, those two are the fabric that knit us together. And he said, you can see in the history, even of the United States, the times we've had internal strife is usually when there is not bridging social capital, right? It becomes this isolationist thing. And he talks about, in Bowling Alone, and his more recent book, he talks about this thing of like, what are you doing so you're not bowling alone? And I do think it's important to belong to a bowling league. And yeah, there are some guys on your team, maybe you're not your best friends, but you start to understand them over time. Like, I'm not best friends with a lot of plumbers, but if I were every week hanging out with a plumber as well as like a neuroscientist, it would probably affect my view of the world. And if I'm solely hanging out with guys just like I am, it's going to be a bubble chamber. And that's when you get in real trouble. And he talks about the early 1900s when they had, mobs of young white guys that felt disenfranchised and lonely, causing trouble and, graffiti and, doing, miscreant activities. And out of that era came some really important programs: Boy Scouts, Boys and Girls Clubs, Big Brother, Big Sister programs. All those came in. You should be bridging.
Sure.
And really important. And that's what I want. That's what I would like to believe will happen in here. And should you guys use my platform, you will see people across oceans now like cheer each other on and just talk about stuff. And they're not friends, but they have a relationship where it's like they go to this global coffee shop and they see each other, and it makes you not feel alone.
Yeah. It's a beautiful way to exchange ideas.
I wish you could do one for Democrats and Republicans. Put them together.
You know what? And independents. Yeah. Everyone. Let's see what we can do.
You could hire, Robert Kennedy to be the CEO of that company. Okay.
Oh, I'm not going to take the bait. Not going to take the bait.
Yeah, don't do it. Don't do it. He loves to push this one.
Oh, I know. He's a little instigator. I've been listening to him.
He is.
Yeah.
He is. That's why it works.
Rapid fire, Sabrina. Why don't you start?
Okay, I'm going to switch it around a little bit.
Sure.
We're going to go easy.
Yeah, let's keep the answers short, Stephen. We've actually already passed the hour, so
I'm sorry.
I apologize.
Okay, sure.
No,
it's
sorry.
Our mistake.
We're enjoying it, so we're sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, easy one. What are you watching on Netflix right now? If you are watching something,
I don't really watch movies or TV. The only thing, and I don't think it's on Netflix, I think it's on YouTube, that Laura and I watched recently is, you ever seen The Power of Myth? It was Bill Moyers interviewed Joseph Campbell, I'm going to say like 30, 40 years ago, about the epic myths, like the hero's journey. It was a seminal work that I read. It's super famous, and Laura had not seen it. So that was one this weekend where I was like, oh my God. And we actually fired up, I think, it was on YouTube, and like started watching it. It's amazing. I mean, it's low resolution. You watch it and you're like, it's a time capsule from 50 years ago, but the information in it is like so true about what is the journey of a hero. Why do we tell each other these stories over thousands of years? We keep echoing the same ideas. That's the only thing I've watched on the TV for a while.
Okay. Love it.
I thought AMC and I thought after COVID that movie theaters would just shut down. With what's happening, I guess we're living in the best era of TV. There's so many options.
TV is amazing.
Yeah, TV is
the
too
movies,
good.
AMC
But give us,
thing.
yeah, but give us your top 3 movies. Let's start with that. Sorry.
Okay.
Think of a question.
Historically, Raiders of the Lost Ark, for that reason, in that I love summer movies. I love those big epics told, modern epics told on there. And I'm telling you, if you watch it again, it is astounding how good the storytelling is, because he has no effect on the plot. It would still end the same way. And if you remember, do you guys watch summer movies, like action movies at all?
Mm-hmm.
All.
Okay. Yeah.
All.
So, there's a very clear formula of, in the first act, you have to set up some scene of the hero is an archer and he's doing archery as he's talking to his friend, or he's at the gun range, or he's a jumper, or he's a fighter, and you set it up so that in the third act, when there's the bomb with the ticking LED timer, he does the thing that you remember he can do. So he shoots the arrow and punches and throws the knife, and it's very clear. It's like, because they showed you in the first act he can do this, in the third act he can be like superhero because he does that to save the world, right? It is a formula. It's done a certain way for a reason, right? Can you name any movie, any action movie in the history of your life you've seen where in the third act the hero does nothing physical? Any Bruce Willis movie, Schwarzenegger, Stallone, Chris Evans, Chris Pine, go through any, none. But at the end of Raiders, and I encourage you to watch it again because it's brilliantly done. It is like a magic trick. At the end of Raiders, he is tied to a stake and cannot move. but it is incredibly satisfying.
That's the one where he just closes his eyes and the thing opens up and
Correct.
yeah.
And the reason for that is the character writing is so good. In the beginning of the movie, when the government agents come to his class and they're like, so Hitler's looking for this arc thing, and we don't know. And he pulls out this book and he's like, well, if you believe this stuff, you know, God came down the tablets and they put in this box and it's, I don't know, some shit. He was very clearly a skeptic about this, right? He goes into tombs and he raids, you know, artifacts and blah, right? So he's like, I'm a skeptic of all this. He goes and he meets the girl, the Marion character, right? The Karen Allen. And she's like, you broke my heart. I was the daughter of your partner and you don't care about me. And you know, I've been living here in the Himalayas and I suck.
This
right?
is when the bar gets burnt down.
The bar gets burned down. Exactly. And she's like,
and she has the map on the
right. And she's like, you don't love me. You don't care about me. You abandoned me. Da, da, da. And the reason the end of the movie is so good is he is tied to the stake with her on the other side of the stake and he can't see her. And he sees they're going to open the ark. And the hero's climactic action is he goes, Marion,
close your eyes.
Close your eyes. And with that one sentence, the screenwriters say, you know what? He believes in God and this is going to be bad. He's like,
no,
forget everything I've said to the movie. God is real and I love you and I'm going to save your life right now. And he pays off those two things with one line, Marion, close your eyes. And it is absolutely brilliant. And people appreciate the movie as an action movie, but the character writing is on another level. So that is one of them. Casablanca is another.
Yeah.
Laura and I went to Casablanca last year, right after a yoga retreat in Marrakesh.
Because of the movie? Or
Yeah. We were not going to go to Casablanca. She's like, I booked our flight to fly to Casablanca. We're going to spend our last night in Casablanca because she's like, I know you love that movie.
Aww.
Yeah, which is wonderful. And I know these are rapid fire, so be quiet. So there's another.
It is the best black and white movie. I mean, Casablanca is a classic.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. We'll talk about another. If you watch it again and it's fresh in your minds, call me and I'll talk to you about the guts underneath that movie and make it. So good.
It's the kind of movie. I don't know what it is about movies, but you remember every scene.
Yeah,
like everything. In the bar when he plays the song, the piano. The black guy in the piano is just so good. It's just brilliant.
Have you seen it, Sabrina?
I have. Again, another one I haven't seen recently.
I haven't seen recently, but it's there, in the airport and the plane takes off. I mean, everything. It's there. It's in your head.
If you go back and watch it, call me and we'll talk about it.
Okay.
And your third?
So that was, the third?
Third, I guess, and this may be a personal one. It's just my memories of making Independence Day are so painful, but it was such an achievement for me at that age and the team I worked on that when I do watch it, every scene, I know the story of like how that came about. So it's not a brilliant movie, but it is a movie that hits all the beats and it's a very personal movie for me.
Right.
So
isn't that guy there as well? What's his name? The guy looks Indian, or Jeff Goldblum, the guy
Jeff
with the
Goldblum, yeah. And
isn't he also in Jurassic Park?
We kind of look similar, Jeff and I. Yeah. So like the little Jeff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking the same. And he's the guy in Jurassic Park as well, right?
Yes, he is. Yeah.
Very
talented,
Sabrina,
very nice guy. Musician.
Sabrina, what's your number one? If I'm not three, but what's your number one movie?
Oh, I'll give you my top three really fast.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. The Goonies, The Godfather.
Oh wow.
And this one, and The Mirror Has Two Faces with Barbara Streisand.
I never saw that.
Oh, it's such a great movie. My husband's like, that one really? Okay. And then there's a Clint Eastwood one where he's a Secret Service.
Oh, In the Line of Fire?
In the Line of Fire. Those, I have four. Those
really?
are, I love that movie.
Yeah,
watch it.
That's a really good movie. Yeah.
Yeah. I think for me, it's just one. For me, it's just one. For me, I mean, obviously I've enjoyed Goonies. I've loved Goonies. But for me, when I think of a top movie that fits everything, I just think of Schindler's List.
Wow.
Full stop. I can't think of anything else when I think of Schindler's List. And I still sleep and I still see that girl with the red dress on top of all the dead bodies. And it's just, when I saw that scene, I said, you motherfucker, Steven Spielberg, you've done it. You fucking killed me.
Got me again.
You killed me, Steven. The thought process behind that guy in every movie and how personal that movie was to him, right? That movie just hit me. It's so well done,
Stephen,
so well acted. It's
I know
brilliant.
this doesn't turn into a non-rapid fire, but I have to tell you, Independence Day was turned into such a real movie. On 9/11, Amit, myself, and we had family members who were in New York City.
Hmm?
He was on a flight with my brother, stuck on the runway. And my husband and I, well, at that point, he was my fiance and I, we were all there because Amit rounded a bunch of family and friends and got us tickets as an engagement gift to see Michael Jackson and his
Oh,
brothers.
wow.
The reunion
The
What an
reunion.
amazing gift.
at
Yeah.
Madison Square Garden.
That
Oh
was the
my
night
God.
before 9/11.
I know
So we're having an
my credit card
amazing
was maxed
time
out.
at the concert. Yeah. He planned this all
That's
for
an
us.
amazing gift.
Oh, it was, I mean, once in a lifetime, right?
Yeah.
To see the brothers reunite. The next morning's 9/11. They're on a flight on the runway, and we didn't know it was a terrorist attack yet. And my husband and I, were fiance at the time, were like, I said, we need to get out of the city fast. We're going back to
Mhm.
Boston to get our stuff. We've just graduated law school and we're moving to DC.
Yep.
We are literally on the highway and we're listening to the radio and we hear everything that's shutting down. And I'm getting like chills thinking about it. But I turn around and see one of the towers fall, the first tower fall, and we're stuck on the highway. And later describing it to people, I said, think of Independence Day when they're,
Mhm.
running on the highway. And I was like, so that movie, like I use that movie, the visual is so, I mean, I have a like visceral
Yeah.
response watching the movie, thinking about what we went through on that highway, So I had to tell you that it was just the way it was done depicts like a real life experience for me. So our rapid fire is the
Okay.
longest rapid fire.
Okay.
I'll get with it.
Yeah. Okay. If you can tattoo any brand in your body and then get that brand's products for free for life, which brand would that be?
Let me start by saying this. I have thought about getting a tattoo. I have not done it, but I've thought about on the inside of each of my feet getting the Eastern and Western hemisphere, just like a line drawing of a globe, like one hemisphere on each foot, because I love to travel. It's probably the most important thing to me, and so
Okay,
does Laura.
so airline tattoo.
So, yeah, I don't know what airline it would be though. That's the thing.
United Airlines and your
Yeah, I don't know a particular airline. Like we fly the One World network a lot, so
Yeah.
Qatar is fantastic, but I'm not sure that stands for what I stand for. I don't know. It's a good question. I don't know. I've never gotten a tattoo, and I don't wear any branded clothing.
Sabrina?
It actually amazes me the idea that we would pay more to advertise someone else's brand on ourselves.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying, like, I thought it was I heard this question on TikTok
Mhm.
and I thought, what a cool question. I heard it last week. It's the first time we're
Yeah.
asking it. Sabrina, what tattoo would
I mean, I didn't even think of it, but since I spent so much money on Amazon, I want Amazon and I'll get anything on Amazon for free.
Ooh, that's
a
really
smart
good.
one. The
good.
brands are there, the Louis Vuittons are on Amazon.
I don't care about that. It's like random stuff that I'm picking up. So
Yeah.
I don't
I was
need the Louis
thinking-
Vuitton. I'll take the
You get the
every-
Amazon Prime logo, so you get it free and tomorrow.
I like that.
Yeah. I was thinking something more like, I don't know, the Four Seasons Hotel or something, like all these expensive
That's
hotels.
a good one.
And
That's a
they're
great
everywhere now. So that,
Yeah.
wherever you travel, you get free hotels. But then that doesn't make sense. Amazon is more of an everyday,
Amazon's a great one. I
Oh,
didn't even think of that.
Or since I have 3 sons, maybe, I don't know, Harvard, or something. Right? Just some Ivy League, because they're out of control, right?
Yeah.
Oh my
Oh, yeah.
God.
That's
Okay,
good.
next question.
Okay.
If we could do 2 more, since we've gone way over.
Sorry,
if you
I'll be quieter.
No. If you had to describe yourself in 3 words, what would it be? What would those words be?
Loyal, funny, smart.
Okay, wonderful.
Okay, good.
See that.
If you had to delete all the apps on your phone, but just keep 3, what 3 would they be?
Oh, easily. Gmail, Maps, WhatsApp.
Okay. Great. Okay, let's do last one. Last one.
Yeah.
What's the best advice you've ever received from someone?
It's that you will always be the hardest critic of yourself. So watch out for what you tell yourself.
That is great. And especially to pass on to children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
I have
like
an
I'm
11-year
super
old
down.
and that's what
I know our children are going to do stupid things and they're going to pour tomato sauce on the white chairs. And I know all that stuff's going to happen. And it's like, Laura and I have a razor that we apply about whether we get upset or not, sort of feeling, or basically to talk ourselves out of being upset, which is everything is negotiable except death. And if no one's dead, it's like, there's a way out. Death is the only thing where it's like, there's no way backward. Taxes are negotiable. Taxes are negotiable. Everything's negotiable except death. And I was in a hospital with my dad. He's had 2 open heart surgeries. The night of September 26th, the night of the debate, Dad was in the hospital recovering from his second valve replacement. And he coded. He died there in the bed in front of me. And I remember that experience. I had gotten the cell phone number of his cardiologist, of his surgeon. And as I saw his vitals dropping, the nurses were not paying attention. And I called him, to which, of course, he's like, how the hell did you get my number? I was like, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm going to send you a screenshot of Dad's monitor by his bed. And he said, I'll be right there. And Dad coded, like flatlined, the alarms went off, the whole thing. And I had pulled nurses in. There were people in the ER. I was like, this is not going down. Like, I know there's no coming back from death. I don't care if you hate me. I don't give a fuck. And Dad lived.
Yeah.
Because that's the one thing where I'm like, I can't negotiate out of he's dead.
Right, right.
So everything else is just like, oh, you crashed the car into the garage. Okay,
Yeah.
it sucks. Let's move on. Nobody's dead.
Yeah. Life is too short. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Stephen, I told Sabrina before we started this episode that I don't know what to expect in today's episode, but I think it'll be interesting. And
so.
You've not disappointed. And appreciate your time. And I look forward to also coming down to Texas to hang out with you Americans, irrespective of who the president is. So it's been a
We would
pleasure.
love to have you down here.
He's doing it again. He's trying to bait you.
No. Dude, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you for a variety of questions. Thank you for having me. I'm sure, because we don't have a long history together, that you didn't know what to expect, but I hope that part of it has been interesting or helpful for your audience. And if there's anyone that I can help, like, you have my contact information. I'm sure you'll put it in the podcast. Like,
yes,
this is what I do.
If it's up to you, if you want to leave an Instagram, a LinkedIn, or an email, that's up to you.
Put the Sukha.
Yeah, you can put my email in the notes. Like, anyone who's like, hey, because I got diagnosed with ADHD last year. Why? Because someone in my platform is an ADHD coach that said, hey, we've been interacting a bunch. I think you should go get medically diagnosed. And I went, and she was right. I wouldn't know that if it were not for someone in Sukha. It's just like, I see you. You are like I am. And now I recognize that I have habits that are not so much hyperactivity, but the inattentive kind of ADD. And, this is what I do with my life. So anyone I can help.
I don't want people telling me what I've got and what I don't have. Just want to live.
You've got that George Clooney vibe. That's what you've got.
Yeah, that's more than enough.
The George Clooney vibe.
Yeah, I do.
Stephen, this has been such a fun chat, and I really hope we could continue this in person very soon, whether you come to San Antonio or I come to Austin and our spouses join us. So
that'd be amazing.
Yeah. So to me, reading about you, you've had such a fascinating life, and I can't wait to see the next part of your journey. So
I'm very excited too. Okay. It was so nice
to meet you for joining us. And thank you, everyone. This has been another episode of Indian Explorers, and we hope you enjoyed it. Please share it with others and subscribe. Thank you.
Ciao.